Today we're going to be comparing two of the most popular comps available on the market today. Over the last few years, I've definitely been converted to the idea of having a compensator on a pistol. It is fantastically beneficial. They work really nicely, and it really makes a difference when it comes to being able to use recoil management and all the other good stuff. I think in the past, comps kind of were getting new into the market and people weren't sure how reliable they were, and there were issues which we're going to speak about today with some compensators that are available that these both don't seem to have an issue with, which is why they've become more reliable and trustworthy for people to be able to use. So let's do first like a basic breakdown of the two styles and what's available. Also compare pricing, designs, and then as lastly, we'll do a very scientific test to see which one performs better. So on my right, this is the Parker mounted machine compensator, and on my left is the Radian afterburner comp. These are both going to be for the SIG Sauer pistols. There are other offerings available on the market, but these are the two we're going to try to highlight as best as we can. Visually, the first thing you'll notice is that the Parker mounted machine is a single port, wide port comp, and on the left, the Radian is a two-port design that kind of makes a kind of a flare design on the right and left side, which again should be able to help mitigating recoil. When it comes to cost, they are fairly close in price. I believe the Radian afterburner at the time of filming this video is roughly $30 to $40 more expensive than the Parker mounted machine, but there also comes with features that both of these should be considered. When it comes to the Parker mounted machine, the comp is going to be a shim design, which means you actually have to mount it and make sure you're using the correct spacing in order for it to function correctly. The Radian uses a very interesting quick attach design, which is single screw is going to be able to fit into the gun, and it makes it much simpler for like the home builder to actually be able to use. Now, the other thing that's going to be worth noting is that besides for the actual comp is the design, where you can see on the Radian, there's kind of like a filling that it goes kind of a little bit back, where it almost looks like it's machined for the slide itself, while the Parker mounted machine, while it does have somewhat of a tapering design, it doesn't have to the same degree as the Radian does. So that's kind of more of an aesthetics thing, but something probably worth pointing out. When it comes to the Radian, I am noticing that the port size is going to be slightly larger than the single port from Parker mounted machine. Now, it's probably somewhat debatable. I'm sure they tested this, where you could see that with that port size, since this is going directly up, I guess the assumption is that, again, the recoil is going straight up. For this side, the recoil is going to be going, again, slightly right and left, because that port design means that the flaring of the ejection pattern of the actual comp should make somewhat of a difference when it comes to recoil mitigation. Now, this is something we're going to actually test, but again, it's something that would probably be worth noting. Now, again, last small detail when it comes to aesthetics, if it's something that you care about, the Parker mounted machine, since it's going to be using a single design where it's going to be using shims, there's a very small spacing between the slide and the comp itself, as well as also there's no other like areas that would show how it's being attached to the slide, to the barrel. Now, on this side, you see that on the right side of the comp, there's going to be the screw point. That's going to be where it attaches to the actual barrel. And again, that's going to just show you a small aesthetic difference between the two. Another important thing to be able to mention is that both of these, for the price that you're getting them at, is a barrel and comp combination. They both come with the compensator plus the barrel. There are some times that you might be able to get a different barrel that's threaded. However, the Radian is a proprietary design where you need their barrel to be able to function onto the comp itself. The Parker mounted machine, you may be able to try it on other barrels that are threaded. However, there's no guarantee that's going to function as well if you're going to use their barrel and comp combination together. They're both wildly accurate. They both work perfectly well, but let's do a very basic test to see if there's any noticeable difference between the two. So for way of transparency, both of these slides have been purchased, both of these barrels have been purchased, and both of these comps have been purchased. They haven't been sent out. I really happen to like Parker mounted machine only because I've been using them for a few years now. But what we're going to do in order to ensure transparency and make sure things are legit is we're going to use the same frame. Both of these slides are able to sit on the same frame. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the person behind the camera switch the slides and use the same frame that we're going to use. I'm going to be blindfolded, and I'm going to be shooting just a few rounds downrange. The only purpose of the shooting is just to try to feel if there's a difference between the recoil between the two options. So I'm going to stand there, stay in the same place, going to fire a few rounds off just to get a feel for it, switch out the slides, stay in the exact same place, fire a few more rounds, and see if there's any noticeable difference that I could feel while not looking at the gun. Okay, so this goes over here. I'm gonna put the air pro. Yeah, so you let me, like, you'll hand whatever slide you have over, and then we'll switch it. Same ammunition, same bullet weight, all the same stuff. The only difference is going to be the slide itself. We have the Radian Afterburner comp, and then we have the Parker mounted machine comp, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I'm going to avoid touching the slide as much as possible, just so, again, I want to just feel if there's a difference. Okay, so this is option number 1. Okay. Boy. I'm still pointing safe direction?
Yes.
Are we good? Okay. So I haven't been told yet which one was which. I'm just gonna give my initial impressions from the beginning. Both comps seem to be like noticeably able to make a difference with recoil management, which is obviously what the point of the comp is. The first one seemed more stout, where you felt the recoil being mitigated and it worked fine. The second one seemed like it was almost causing the gun to cycle faster. So the recoil mitigation on the second one seemed much better. That's my initial thoughts. Let's go back to the table and see which one was which. Okay, so I now know that the second one was the Radian Afterburner and the first one was the Parker mounted machine. I still believe they both function great. They both do what they need to do. However, based on this very, very, very scientific test, the Radian Afterburner just seemed to have a slightly better performance in the feeling of the recoil than the Parker mounted machine. The other value to the Radian Afterburner is, again, the ease and simplicity of installation. When it comes to shims and stuff like that, I barely trust myself, and often I'll try to get help to be able to put them on because I really want to make sure it's being put on correctly, it's Loctited correctly, it's perfectly timed, all that stuff. The design of the Radian is that with a singular screw, it auto sets itself to being able to be set and timed correctly, and it just works great. The other value is that for me, if I'm going to want to clean my Parker mounted machine, then the barrel and the comp are kind of like permanently installed and you're not really going to want to touch it or do anything to that. If I want to get a deep clean on the Radian, then simply removing one screw, taking the two pieces apart, I could clean the barrel, I could clean all the additional parts that I feel like there's a chance of being able to miss when I'm using the Parker mounted machine. Another note that's worth pointing out, it could be because of the design of the comps themselves, but when I was shooting this indoors, the Radian seems to have a significantly larger flash from like just the explosion of the gun. We'll try to capture that on camera, but realistically, when you see a fire, you see a fire. But just know that when I was shooting in the range, the Parker mounted machine seemed just to be a little bit more subtle. Now, again, it's probably just because of the design, but I just thought that would be worth pointing out as well. So I'm gonna leave it up to you to get your input on this, but this was a very interesting test for me because they're both, again, fairly close in price. Being available on the market. Parker mounted machine is actually a much smaller kind of family-run company, which is a part of the reason why I really like them. They're, I think, a really great group of people. Radian has been able to really think through the design, and they also have an additionally a fluted barrel versus the Parker mounted machine, which is kind of like a standard flat barrel. But again, I think they both work great. The performance at the end of the day, I think still the winner will be for the Radian, and I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts in the comment section below.